Okay, here we go. Chapter 3, verse 1. Now the serpent was more cunning than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said to the woman, has God indeed said, you shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said to the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden. But the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God has said, you shall not eat it, nor shall you touch it, lest you die. And the serpent said to the woman, you will not surely die. For God knows that in the day you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. So when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, let me say that again. So when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, that it was pleasant to the eyes, and desirable to make one wise, she took of its fruit and she ate, and ate. And she also gave to her husband with her, and he ate. Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they knew they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves coverings. And they heard the sound of the Lord God. By the way, that word sound, cold, is also voice. The voice of the Lord God walking in the garden in the cool of the day. And Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord God among the trees of the garden. Then the Lord God called to Adam and said, where are you? Ayecha. Ayecha. So he said, I heard your voice in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, and I hid myself. And he said, who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree which I commanded that you should not eat? Then the man said, the woman that you gave to be with me, she gave me of the tree, and I ate. And the Lord God said to the woman, what is this that you have done? And the woman said, the serpent deceived me, and I ate. So the Lord God said to the serpent, because you have done this, you are cursed more than all cattle, more than every beast of the field. On your belly you shall go, and you shall eat dust all the days of your life. And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. He shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. To the woman he said, I will greatly multiply your sorrow and your conception. In pain you shall bring forth children. Your desire shall be for your husband, but he shall rule over you. Then to Adam he said, because you have heeded the voice of your wife, and have eaten from the tree which I commanded you, saying, you shall not eat of it, cursed is the ground for your sake. In toil you shall eat of it all the days of your life. Both thorns and thistles it shall bring forth for you, and you shall eat of the herb of the field. In the sweat of your face you shall eat bread, till you return to the ground, for out of it you were taken. For dust you are, and to dust you shall return. And Adam called his wife's name Eve, because she was the mother of all living. So also for Adam and his wife the Lord God made tunics of skin and clothed them. Then the Lord God said, behold, the man has become like one of us, to know good and evil. And now lest he put out his hand and take also of the tree of life and eat and live forever. Therefore the Lord God sent him out of the Garden of Eden to till the ground from which he was taken. So he drove out the man, and placed cherubim at the east of the Garden of Eden, and a flaming sword which turned every way to guard the way to the tree of life. Wow. From the apex to the pits. Now, immediately, I mean, you're sitting here going, wow, this incredible relationship with God, and now, what the heck happened? What happened?
Deception.
Well, notice, relationships are all screwed up.
At this point,
And we're going to unpack that. But we need to see something about what's going on here. And I had told you in class about the arumim. So let's think about that. In chapter 2, the very last verse, it says they were naked.
and not
Arumim, the plural im, right? Arumim, yeah. Okay. Arumim, translated naked. They were both naked. Notice it's nakeds, plural. They were naked, and they were not ashamed. The next verse, and the serpent was kol. The serpent was, let's see, the serpent was arum mikol. Arum mikol hayat hasadeh, the creatures of the field. He was more, and notice I have 3 translations there. Cunning, crafty, cunning, subtle. Those are 3 different types of translations you get with that word arum. But it's the same word root as naked. Now in Genesis 2, what did it mean that the man and his wife were naked and they were not ashamed? Open. They were honest. They were open. And we saw physically, emotionally, cognitively, relationally, and spiritually open to each other. And now the very next verse, which in the English you will not see that, right? You don't. In fact, if you see they were naked and not ashamed, and then you see crafty, cunning, and subtle, there's no connection with those, are there? They're almost exact opposites. All right, so when we see this term arum for the serpent, up until this point, what did you see about all the relationships in creation up to this point? Before
it was good and harmonious.
Good, harmonious, but what else? Open,
Trusting.
which means trust was at the core, relationships of trust.
That, on the other hand,
That's what we were created for, relationships of trust. So the serpent shows up, and now the words crafty, cunning, and subtle, and you're going to see how much this devil dog, how cunning and crafty he was. Because the idea of crafty, cunning, and subtle, I want you to think about it in light of naked. How is it related to naked?
Not trusting. Is that?
But how is it related to it?
Exposing.
It's kind of opposite, isn't it? For example, if you're open and honest, you are who you are. But when you say, he's a crafty one, he is, what do you immediately start doing? You start going,
Well, it's stealthy. Secret.
cunning. It's like somebody who's,
you don't trust the word.
there's a word that I remember. He's treacherous.
Okay.
From some movie, but I remember that stuck in my mind. He's treacherous. Be careful. And that's the thing with what we see here. This is not an openness. When somebody's crafty and cunning, do you think you want to cozy up to them?
No.
Why?
Because you're gonna get hurt.
You can't
You can't trust
trust them because
Watch it
they're
now.
cunning and crafty.
There's
Subtle,
some snakes in the grass.
subtle, we have this idea that they're understated, right? You're going to see how subtle. They are not who they seem to be. That's the idea here. They are actually hidden. Hidden behind their craftiness and their cunning. So when we see this creature and what he does, we're going to see somebody who's treacherous And if you don't see by the end of the chapter how treacherous, yes.
What does that imply when they say the serpent was more cunning? Does that mean the
There
other
was something else.
Well, no, it doesn't imply that. I think it implies when you look at all the animals, this serpent
Special.
was different.
Yeah, but see, I kind of agree with what she's saying. It
But
says
it's like
more
saying
cunning,
Yeah, but
which means something else had to be a little more cunning. a
no,
little
no,
less
no,
cunning.
that's your own thinking. Here, we see from what we just saw in creation, the way it was created to be.
Yeah,
I don't like the word.
yeah, because it
I
seemed
know.
like there was something else
But,
there.
yes.
Can I throw a crazy thought? What if the serpent was open, but not open to God, open to the devil?
Well, that's kind of part of the idea, but the other thing is if you literally translate this, the serpent was cunning from all the beasts of the field which the Lord God had made, literally. We think more than, but that is a English translation. If you literally say it, the serpent was cunning from all the beasts of the field the Lord God had made. Out of all the beasts of the field,
It was the smartest.
he was cunning. But we also know that when we're talking about the serpent here, we're not talking about the average bear.
Mm.
I was just check the word room in dictionary. It also says the nakedness is stripped, and the stripped I like that word because stripped, stripped is when something was taken from.
Yeah, it was
us.
taken
So
from
There
us.
was just not word like.
That's kind of an
naked.
interesting, I hadn't,
You see, the stripped it means something was. You say a room, it's stripped.
well, he was stripped too, sort of.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying.
But he wasn't naked, and that's why this meaning is
Right.
different. In fact, it's very opposite of this. When you get the feeling of this and where they are, they're just open and honest, innocent. In fact, humans were innocent at that point.